everyone, in this video we are going to talk about an excerpt from a very beautiful and raw book, The White Tiger by Arvind Adiga. This story is about a very intriguing man named Balram who is the son of a rickshaw puller who has this huge ambition of changing his life forever. This man is not just one man, it is a representation of all the men out there in our nation who lead a mediocre life in the aim of changing their lives forever. They lead this perpetual journey of doing hard work and doing lovely jobs just in order to change their lives. This man here proves them all wrong by getting educated in such a lovely village where education is not given more importance. Besides that, this tale is not just about a man's story, but it is also about the talk of our nation through the eyes of one person. Our nation is full of blind religious beliefs. People are rooted into that. Besides that, it is also about corrupt politicians who manipulate our minds just in order to carve their ways out. Besides, this tale is also about a man whose life is influenced by his family. Same is the case with all of us. This tale not just represents one man, but it represents, in fact, it is just a representation of all of us out there. So, here, the story mainly centralizes on the idea of two Indias. Yes, you heard me correct. Two Indias, one which is full of light and brightness, where the rich dwell, and the other is dark and full of murky corners, where there is poverty. In this poverty, you won't find anyone willing to get educated, nor would you find people educated there. So, this story is an inspirational story for all of us, and so hereby we begin our presentation.
I am talking about author of The White Tiger. Arvind Adiga is the author of this story. He was born on Madras on 23rd October 1974. His father name is Dr. K. Madhav Adiga and his mother name is Usha Adiga. He studied at Kenare High School, and after that he goes to a St. Aloysius College where he completed his SSLC in 1990, and also he secured first place in his state in SSLC. After that, his mother was dead in 1990 because of cancer, and he and his family after shifted at Sydney, Australia, and at Australia he studied at Columbia University in New York City under the great author Simon Sama, where he studied English literature and also secured second place in his graduation. After that, he started his journalistic career as a financial journalist. He covered a lot of. He started his journalistic career as a financial journalist and trending as a Time Financial. After that, he was hired by Time magazine, where he remains as a South Asia correspondent for 3 years before his freelance. And during his freelance, he wrote A White Tiger, a great novel who won the main Booker Prize in 2008. After that, he lives in Mumbai, Maharashtra. He is the first an Indo-Australian and fourth Indian-born author who won the main Booker Prize. His novel The White Tiger is won the 2008 main Booker Prize. After that, his second novel published in India between December in 2000. His second novel published in India during November 2008 and in US and UK in mid 2009. So this is a basic introduction of the author of White Tiger.
Hi, here's me explaining the story of the text The White Tiger. Introducing himself as the White Tiger, the author writes a letter to the Premier of China, who is soon going to visit India to learn the culture of entrepreneurship from the Indians. He decided to write this letter to him so that he can better explain India and the Bangalore, his city, than the one explained by the politicians in their agendas. Now he begins his story. He explained an incident when he was sitting with Ashok and his wife, and they remarked him as a person with lack of knowledge. And Balram also admits that he is a person with lack of knowledge, and it's not a big deal because many of the people in the impoverished region of India have lack of knowledge. Now, introducing himself as more deeply, he explains the poster the police poster which was printed. After what he explains as an act of entrepreneurship. The poster explains that he was a dark complexioned guy, around 25 to 35 age, 5 foot 4 inch, and he was the son of rickshaw puller. Now he also explains about his village, Lakshmangarh. It was a village in very impoverished region of the India. He also explains about Ganga with its suffocating and noxious mud. Explaining his incident with Ganga river, he explained the incident of his mother's funeral when her body was buried in the water and it was beautifully decorated with garlands and all things. But it was very in contrast with the miserly life he has lived. It thinks to him that they all were like regretful to the life he had been living. Thank you.
Hello, I am Aman. I am going to present the storyline of the White Tiger. Balram describes the poor condition of his village, which he notices is nothing like the idyllic image of the village life which the government describes to the outsiders. In truth, the village is governed by the 4 landlords who have owned the village land, river and the roads, and they charge the people with the exorbitant fees for using the resources. Unwilling the corruption endemic to the Indian education system, he describes his one of the teacher named Mr. Krishna who have stolen the government money for which was allocated for the school lunch and the uniforms. Also he recounts an incident when the government police officer have arrived at his school, and he was very much impressed by the intelligence of Balram, and he called that boy a white tiger. Even though his very good scholastic performance, he was removed from his school by his parents because one of his female relatives got married, and he had to work in a tea shop, but he was able to manage his education even at the tea shop, and he thought that he was even better. He was getting even better education there than compared to his school. And he also used to read the poems, especially of Iqbal, whom he considered one of the 4 best poets of the world. And he believed that he was different from the other peasants of the country, and even at the very young age he saw what was beautiful in this world. Thank you.
I am Patel Visa. I am describing the Balram's character in this video. Balram Halwai narrates his life in a letter written in 7 consecutive nights and addressed to the Chinese Premier Wen Jiabao. In this letter, Balram explains how he, the son of a rickshaw puller, escaped a life of servitude to become a successful businessman, describing himself as an entrepreneur. Balram was born in the rural village of Lakshmangarh, where he lived with his grandmother, parents, brother and extended family. He is a smart child, but is forced to leave school in order to help pay for his cousin's dowry, and begins to work in a tea shop with his brother in Dhanmal. While working there, he begins to learn about India's government and economy from the customers' conversations. Balram describes himself as a bad servant but a good listener, and decides to become a rickshaw driver.
Hi guys, I'm Nilay Shah, and in this video I continue describing Balram's character. After learning how to drive, Balram finds a job driving Ashok, the son of Lakshmangarh's landlords. He takes over the job of the main driver from a small car to a heavy luxury described Honda City. He stops sending money back to his family and disrespects his grandmother during a trip back to his village. Balram moves to New Delhi with Ashok and his wife Pinky Man. Throughout their time in Delhi, Balram is exposed to extensive corruption, especially in the government. In Delhi, the contrast between poor and wealthy is made even more evident by their proximity to one another. One night, Pinky Man takes the wheel from Balram while drunk and hits something in the road and drives away. we are left to assume that she has killed a child. Ashok's family puts pressure on Balram to confess that he had been driving alone. Ashok's become increasingly involved in bribing government officers and for the benefits of the family coal business. Balram then decides that killing Ashok will be only the way to escape India's rooster coup. After plugging Ashok with a bottle and stealing a large bribe, Balram moves to Bangalore when he bribes the police in order to help start his own taxi business. When one of his driver kills bike messenger, Balram pays off the family. Balram explains that his own family was almost certainly killed by Ashok's relatives as a retribution for his murder, Ashok's murder. At the end of novel, Baram realizes his actions and considers that his freedom is worth the lives of his family and of Ashok, and thus ends the letter to Jibao, letting the reader think that dark hammer tale and the rooster coop trap of life, introduced by writer.
Pinky Madam is Ashok's wife and just as looking as her husband. Because of her background, she is never fully accepted by Ashok family. She is demanding and capricious and deeply unsatisfied with life in India, constantly hoping to return to America and is generally cruel to Balram. She eventually leaves Ashok to return to New York and shows a deep grief over the hit and run that provide the last nail in the coffin of their relationship. I have a hard time believing that Pinky Madam, an educated woman, would be completely ignorant of her husband's wrongdoings. Thus, it irks me that she allows her husband to exploit Indians for months before showing us her conscience. It seems to me she does not actually care for the people, but rather only considers her own image of herself. It makes sense then that the flees India not because she killed someone, but because she is murderer. I spent the majority of the novel trying to like Pinky Madam. I was looking for at least one likable character. Ultimately, I cannot like her. In fact, I find her to be one of the most frustrating and the disagreeable character in the White Tiger. The Shock Son and the Balram's Master. Ashok recently returned from America and has gentler, middle personality compared to his wealthy and anti-led family members. He feels discontented by the whispered corruption in India and his family role in it, but goes along with his relatives headings over bridges to minister and currying for favor with the politician. Compared to one another wealthy people around him, Ashok demonstrates more outward signs of comparison of our Balram's seeming to make take interest in his servant welfare and trusting him internally. Ashok becomes increasingly distant and goes into the something or downward spiral after his wife, Pinky Madam, leaves him and goes back to America. Balaram feels a strong, mysterious connection to his master, but is several months in his service concludes that Ashok is not less cruel and selfish than his father and brother. That generosity he offered is not nearly what he could offer to give.
Hello guys, my name is Siddhant Jain and I am today going to speak about the context of the book White Tiger in our society. And frankly speaking, I think there isn't a better time to speak about this regarding the recent developments about demonetization and corruption. And as is shown in the book, polarization of the poor and rich is the basic issue covered in this book. We can think about the dirt poor home of Balram Halwai, whose parents don't even bother to give him a real name or track his birth or at least note his birth date, and the rich home of Mr. Ashok Sharma, son of a coal magnate whose family drinks Black Dog and other such liquor brands about almost every day. we can see that the polarization of poor and rich has just led to many situations in the current year, like from the Brexit to election of Mr. Donald Trump as the president of the United States. It is because of this polarization, the poor feel that their voices are not being able to heard, and thus they do the unpredictable. And some situations remind us in this book of just such inequality. A sentence from the book comes to mind, and although I know that I am not allowed to curse or anything, I'll still try to use a kid friendlier version of this, and that quote is, "Are you effing kidding me?" This is the most used sentence in the code in the book, and this is because there are just so many injustices. Like Balram's father could not get a doctor to get his TB treated, and Mr. Ashok's father, he actually had hired Balram to wash his food and do all the driving of his son. So these injustices make us feel that although this book is published in 2008, it still captures the essence of today's world and our nation, and that is why many also in the book communism is mentioned in very background themes, and still communism is going on. This is why Naxalites in India are using insurgent attacks to harm the police and our armed forces. That is why I think this book.
Ultimately, The White Tiger is a tale about morality, suggesting that the morality can be viewed as a rigid or flexible. Bahram eventually embraces the latter option. In order to justify murdering Ashok and his family's life, Bahram develops an alternate moral system. He reasons the money he steals from Ashok is rightful his, since servants are exploited by the rich, and convinces himself of his exploitism. The White Tiger, in order to rationalize his decisions, believing he is the only one who has truly spoken up the truth. The Ruser coup, he feels compelled to change his life. In this sense, Balram has become a version of Overman who believes himself to be above the moral and legal limitations of society. Ariga poses a question through Balram: do we blame a criminal for his decisions, or do we try to understand decisions as reactions to an overly oppressive and restrictive society? Assuming that a reader does have a definitive answer, Ariga suggests then the morality is a fluid and unfixed concept. It is also for freedom and individuality. Balram is
Arvind Adiga wrote a debut novel in 2008 and won the Booker Prize for Men. What a great success that every author would like to achieve. The White Tiger, the novel for which he got the Booker Prize. In The White Tiger, he emphasized on the fact that Indians are still very poor, narrow-minded and backward. In The Mask of Balram Halwai, he clearly described the current situation of rural India, which is two-thirds part of India. In his novel, he writes, Indians were ruled by Muslims, Britishers, and as he says, that only moron will think that we are free now. He clearly described the rural part of India and the landlords which rules over the villagers. And his writing skills are very unique. He can picturize the whole phenomena, village and town. He becomes sarcastic when it is needed, dramatical, emotional. So I think the most successful novelist of India is he.